Hello and welcome finally to Ensuring Success. We will apologize right away for the delay. We had some technical difficulties. We have resolved those difficulties, and we will be with you all day today for 10 hours. And even though this session is starting late, we will make sure it goes for 50 minutes. So we'll be off for a couple of our sessions, off a little bit until we get this all in sync again. But we have breaks between the sessions where we can make up time, so the sessions will all qualify for CPE credit in case you're worried about that. I'm Gail Perry, Editor-in-Chief of CPA Practice Advisor Magazine, and we are so glad you're here with us today and glad you made it through our technical issue to start off. All of you attending today have a special opportunity to be considered our 10-hour warriors. Only the people who are in the first session have the chance to claim that they were here for all 10 hours today. So we hope you'll stick it out with us and be here all day to get plenty of CPE credit and, more important, get plenty of incredible education from the wonderful speakers we have lined up for you today. We are here broadcasting live in Dallas at AMS Pictures, and we will be here all day. We are here courtesy of our sponsors, so I want to make sure to mention them so that you know who's making this event possible for you and for all of us. So I'm just going to read down the list real quickly. Our sponsors this year are Avalara, Sage, BQE Core, eFileForBiz.com, Paychex, CPA.com, ADP, Xero, Chase Inc., Wolters Kluwer, Intuit, Gusto, and Canopy, and we thank all of them so much for making this event possible. This particular session is sponsored by Chase Inc., and as you can see, we have some Chase Inc. Cups to drink from, and they're here with us in spirit, and so glad that they're making this session possible for us to share with you as well. I want to explain real briefly how CPE works for this session and for the rest of the day. During this session, we will have 3 quick breaks, and during those breaks, we'll show a CPE code at the bottom of your screen. I'll call your attention to it verbally to make sure you're looking up and making sure you're watching the screen when that code appears. You need to write down that code. Each code will be a 3-digit code, so at the end of the session, you'll have 9 digits altogether. Those codes make up your verification that you attended this session today. So you will keep those codes, write them down, keep them handy, and then at the end of the day when you've finished all 10 sessions or however many you plan to view today, you'll go to the CPE/CE link at the top of our page, and that'll take you to the form that you can use to enter all the CPE codes that you received and get credit for these sessions. If you need to contact us today for any reason, we're at info@ensuringsuccess.com, so you can reach us there by email. You can also find us on social media if you'd like to talk about it and share your comments and questions. On Twitter, we're using the hashtag DecemberCPE, and we're also on Facebook at CPA Practice Advisor. So we'd love to see you up there. And right now, we're going to get started by introducing our speakers for this session. And they are right next to me. We have Brian Swanson and Irene Valverde and Jean Carragher, and I'm going to have them each introduce themselves to you briefly.
Well, hi, I'm Brian Swanson. I'm with Flashpoint Marketing. We work with accounting firms across the country providing digital marketing solution and consulting services.
I'm Irene Valverde. I am currently the Director of Marketing, HR, and Recruiting at Combiner Savett. We are a full-service accounting firm based in Santa Monica, and we have over 100 practitioners.
Wonderful. Good morning. I'm Jean Carragher, President of Capstone Marketing. I've been consulting with accounting firms with Capstone Marketing for over 20 years now. You can find more info at capstonemarketing.com. And thank you, Gail, for the invite today.
You're welcome. I'm so glad you're all here to join me and to talk about marketing for CPA firms. And when we talk about marketing, what do we mean by that, in particular in the context of accounting firms? Irene, do you want to tell us, since you're in the trenches,
Sure,
tell us about that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's a great question, because what you want to do when you venture into marketing as a firm is identify that question. You know, does marketing mean strategy, website, collateral, proposals, training? All of that encompasses marketing. So it's really identifying and prioritizing what you're going to be working on to start working on a marketing plan or some marketing objectives.
Excellent.
Well, and I think also over the last few decades, the way firms can market has also changed a lot. You know, given the advent of digital and social, and firms are becoming more sophisticated in what they're executing.
I remember it was a pretty big breakthrough when we were allowed to put ads in the yellow pages.
You travel,
Yeah.
you always check the phone book
Yeah.
to see how big the ad was, or if you wanted to find a firm. And of course, you know what, you don't even have to bother with that anymore. You could just X out the yellow pages.
We've come a long way.
Yes.
Exactly.
Do you know, in fact, I think our first slide is up there to kind of segue, you know, about what marketing is, but why are firms marketing? You know, why should they bother, right? And you could see there, this is from a study that Capstone Marketing conducted with CPA Trendlines that we call Gear Up for Growth. And we asked, you know, what are your primary objectives when it comes to marketing? Why are you involved in all of this? And we had over 450 validated respondents, and you could see it's all about adding new clients. Whether you were a high performer or a low performer, it was all about getting the clients.
So is that typically the goal of an accounting firm that's doing marketing? I mean, you feel that that's what your survey has shown, that getting new clients is what you're really looking for, and what are other features are causing people to want to do marketing?
Well, it's right, and we don't have to cover like every point, but I think something I'd like to add. So while adding new clients is number one, this brings home the point that firms really need to be specific about the types of new business they want to bring in.
Oh,
Wouldn't you agree with that?
I would say that's 100% accurate, and sometimes I think adding new clients might even mean adding better clients and getting rid of this and getting more of that. You know, and that's not easy, or it's a challenge, particularly as a firm continues to grow and get more sophisticated and sort of tackle the next level, the next tier challenges. It's okay, how do we do that? And then having the faith that you can do it, because that's scary to make that leap, I think.
Well, and I also see adding new clients, I would include in adding more business from existing clients, because one of the keys here is client retention, so those kind of go part and parcel.
Absolutely.
And training your practitioners to look for those new business opportunities within the client base
Right.
is also so important.
Absolutely. And I know it's a session today about client advisory services, and you know, we're reading and hearing a lot about AI and blockchain and the need for accountants to become more advisory. So this opens up that whole channel, right? So the segments for today, I mean, they really do all hook together.
What's interesting is looking at this slide that I think the audience sees is if you look at 11 and up in terms of total persons, look at where brand awareness falls. So it's sort of this interesting change that once you get to a certain size, oh wow, now we really, if we're going to sort of grow into that next space, well, we got to let people know who we are. And brand awareness is a tricky thing, because it's hard to get hard line ROI numbers on brand awareness. You know, how do you do that? That is the marketer's challenge, right? Because it's difficult to do that. I think it's very difficult to measure. So you know the name of my company. How do you put a metric around that?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
very difficult.
Yeah. I mean, you could have the research studies done, you know.
Yeah, you can, sure.
But very few firms do that. You know,
Yeah.
the largest firms do that.
Right.
But when we're focusing on the smaller firm, you're making a great point. You know, the brand awareness becomes more important. The lead generation becomes more important. So for those of you that see the slide, if we could just go back to the prior one, if it's possible. Wanda, thank you. I always counsel, you know, clients and prospects, when you see results like this, you want to pay attention to what's happening within your size firm, but also take a look at that next level, because that's where you're headed, right? And if you've established your growth goals, you want to also see, well, what are the firms in that next size group doing, and what do we need to pay attention to? And as Irene alluded to earlier, this is all about a firm making the commitment to what they're willing to do.
Right.
So how did they define marketing and business development? What skills do their team members have? And how do they put that together for their own firm?
Which ultimately goes back to what we were talking about earlier, was how taking that point one step further is, okay, now that we have those pieces in place, we need a plan. Because if we don't have a plan and we not only do we need a plan, but we need a plan with accountability. And that comes from the top, because you can have all the best laid plans you want. But what is it that Stephen Covey says? A commitment without involvement is nothing. And so, but it's hard because people have, I mean, let's face it, there are billable requirements of most professionals, So if you're going to ask a team member who's busy for 6 months, a year in audits or whatever the case may be, we have to have reasonable expectations of what they can accomplish versus what we need in maybe an outside expert or to go to another team member to get, So practical balance is important.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel that you need to have a champion. So it doesn't have to be the managing partner. It can be anyone who's really interested in growth of the firm or marketing, but it needs to be supported by the managing partner and leadership. So that's, I think, what's really important,
really
because that champion will decide who are we going to be as a firm, what will our brand be as a firm, and they can go and speak to the members of the firm and find out, is this who we want to be? Who do we want to be to the public? And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up with brand awareness, is they don't know who they are. So you need to start there.
Okay, we're going to take just an extremely quick break. We're not going anywhere, but we want you to pay attention to the screen and note that the CPE code for this session is being displayed. So it's a 3-digit number. You want to make a note of that. Write it down if you're planning on requesting CPE credit for this session. And there will be 2 more codes later on in the session, so just make a note of that one. So is it fair to say that, and I don't know, Jean, if the survey that you did covered this or not, but is it fair to say that the majority of CPA firms don't have a formalized marketing plan?
Yes.
That's funny.
It's very fair to say that, yes.
It's true.
No, we have come a long way, and there are many firms out there doing a fantastic job with their marketing and business development. They have their formalized plan, they have their niche groups, they have their business developers. I mean, they've really got it together. There still are many, many firms, and it probably does lean on the side of the smaller firms, where the partners might think, well, it's not in writing, but I've got it in my head. It's right here, and I believe them. I do believe they've got their plan in their head. Right. But as Brian said before, when a firm creates its marketing plan, it does need to be accountable. And when it's in writing, it's more accountable, because you're segmenting who is responsible for doing what by when. So there's no getting away from it. It's all very clear about who's made the commitment to do what. Yeah.
So I'm going to try a little more technology here today, fingers crossed, but we hope this will work. I have a feeling it will. So if we'd like to be able to ask you guys some poll questions from time to time. This isn't poll questions for your CPE, this is just for joining in the conversation with us. So if you're watching this on your computer and you have your phone nearby, what we'd like you to do is on your phone, so you're not leaving our screen, but on your phone go to slido.com, slido.com. And if you go there, we can talk. You can answer questions that we post, and you can post questions to us here on the stage as well. So the first question that we're going to ask you up there is just, what is the size of your firm or your company? So if you can go to slido.com, when you go there, you have to enter our code, which is December CPE, the same code we're using for Twitter. So that'll take you onto our screen, and you can answer questions there. So we'll leave that up. You can go there at your leisure, but we'd like to know of those who are in our audience what size firms we're looking at. Okay, so when you start a plan, what are the pieces and parts? I mean, where do you start if you're thinking of doing a marketing plan for your company?
Do you want me to take that, or?
There's a lot of answers to that question. Why don't you start us off, Irene?
So you need to look at where you're going to be involved. We have our plan. What I love about putting a plan together is that it really makes you start thinking about what your goals are going to be, who can help you in certain areas, who has the skill set to help you in certain areas. So you want to look at internal and external functions. You want to look at the broad scope. You want to be in all medias. So I start with events. Who is there going to be a champion for events? Then I go to our website. What is our website going to sort of portray for the year? What's important content-wise in the website? And just go down the list of specifics for the year of what needs to be accomplished, and then map people, whether it be one person or 5 or 20, to own certain aspects of the plan. Because as the marketer, you're helping to execute and lead, but your practitioners are really the ones who are executing on most of the plan. Would you
I would
agree?
even take a step back from that. Because what you said is you do have to have those champions, and you have to have it, out whatever format you use, whether that's Word or Excel, or you need to even take a step back and determine where is the firm right now,
Yeah, absolutely.
and what have the growth trends been, and where are you making your money, and where are your specialties, so that you can decide where are the opportunities for us to grow, which industry or service areas should we focus on. And then create, you could have an umbrella firm plan, but then you could have separate niche plans, if you will, that dovetail into that overall plan. So I don't want anybody getting nervous out there, because we're talking about planning in all these pages. It doesn't need to be a volume of a marketing plan that you'll not follow. It could be very simple, a few pages, just as long as everybody's clear on what they're making the commitment to do. And then to establish the growth goals for the firm and determine, well, how many new clients is that going to take to achieve that revenue goal? Or from client expansion that you referred to before, how many new servicers, or how can we generate more revenue from our clients, filling their needs, so that you can calculate your overall goal and how you're going to get there.
Right. Right. And it's a process. It's a conversation, because obviously I have the goals that I want to set for the firm, but I also have to work with my managing partner, and then the managing partner needs to work with the rest of the partners and the principals and managers on their particular goals or their departmental goals. So it is a process, but it's definitely not something that isn't possible. If you chunk it up and you set a few priorities, I always say, let's start with our top 3. What is it that we want to accomplish this year? If you start small and build, it's really helpful. And then what I love, once the plan is done, you can go back every year and say, well, what did we do? What didn't we do? What do we need to improve on? And where are we going for the next year? So it really sets a nice baseline for every year after that. And you're not looking at it on a yearly basis. You're looking at it, I look at it weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever works for your organization, definitely. Right.
Just one thing to add on all that is how complicated, complex, and the level of resources you need to achieve success in a particular area. For example, one of my areas is digital marketing, so oftentimes we're brought in to work with firms that don't have that expertise in-house. The point is, the smaller your firm, if you're just a solo practitioner, or it'll be interesting to see the results from who's submitting, the typical size of the audience. Obviously, if you're a smaller firm, I'm saying a solo practitioner or just a few professionals, this process will be should be simpler, easier to manage. Sure. But if you have 100, 200 professionals in your firm, then, then it's definitely more towards what you're speaking about. However, all the points Jean made can apply across all these groups, because no matter what your size, you should know at least, here's our firm, or how are we trying to grow, where's the growth going to come from? And then the different tactics that you deploy, whether, they're near and dear to my heart in digital or another area of marketing, is based on realistically size of your organization, resources you have available to you as a leader.
I mean, I love to hire industry experts. I love you guys, but I know that a solo practitioner or a firm of 10 people might not have those resources.
sure.
So really the planning helps you save dollars. You know, you want to take the money that you do have and put it towards the most important thing for you within the next 6 months or year. So that planning really helps you get the most out of your time and your money.
Right.
Be practical,
important.
for sure.
Right. So Gail, it might be an interesting time now. Oh, and they've already switched the slide, because you're talking about marketing planning and, you know, being accountable and, you know, having it written down. So it might be interesting to take a look at what marketing activities are firms doing more of. You know, so this, what you're looking at here, again, it's from Gear Up for Growth and comparing the high performers and the low performers. And you could see whether high performing or low performing, the top marketing activity that firms plan to increase is social media, which Brian has already, you know, tapped in on. So this is, it's important for firms to have this type of information, not to necessarily just copy it verbatim, but when, and again, the smaller the firm, if you chose one activity or maybe two and really made the commitment to it and did it well, you're going to see payback from those efforts, as opposed to trying to get into too many things, to really just focus in on what are the one or two things that I'm really willing to invest my time and my budget in.
Yep,
That's right.
absolutely. Absolutely. And social media is one of those things that really can pay back in dividends. And it's really, it's free. It's your time.
Right.
It's building it helps you build your brand awareness. It helps you in so many areas. It helps you become an industry specialist. So many things if you can leverage that great
Right.
medium.
Right.
What's really interesting about the information in the study is if you look on the high performer side, 3 of the 5 things on there are really digital, whether or not it's on the surface obvious. Social media is connected to the website, and obviously being on social media. Thought leadership, you need to have something to promote on social media, and you need search engine optimization to get your website found in Google where the thought leadership sits. So isn't it interesting that 3 of 5 are focusing on tactics that 10 to 15 years ago, nobody really knew much about. I mean, the need for thought leadership was always there. Just social media and websites are now new distribution channels that previously we didn't focus on as an industry. That now high performing firms, according to this study and others, but this one particularly, and I know it for a fact, is where you can make a lot of powerful impact.
Right.
And I'm going to add a fourth, because if I talk to my younger practitioners, they're going to say that a big chunk of their networking happens on social media.
Well, you can add recruiting on that too.
Yeah,
If the firm's
absolutely.
concerned about that, if they're in that stage, wow, social media is where a lot of young professionals are looking to get a behind the scenes feel for what's going on at firm A or B or C. That's why some firms may be using Instagram, or I've even seen, Snapchat? I'm not on Snapchat.
No, I'm not on Snapchat.
I don't think anybody wants to see what happens every day in my life. But you know, it's not that exciting. But the idea is for people of a certain age, that is where it's at, you know, for that group. So.
Right.
So we're going to ask our audience a little bit about their social media activity as well. But first, we're going to take a very quick break. We're going to learn a little bit about our sponsor for this session, Chase Inc. And when we come back from that commercial break, we'll have your second CPE code for the session, and then we'll talk about social media a little more.
Excellent.
With the Chase Inc. Business Unlimited card, I get unlimited 1.5% cash back. It's so simple, I don't even have to think about it. So I think about mouthfeel.
I don't think about the Inc. card. I think about nitrogen ice cream in supermarkets all over the world.
I think about the details. Fine. I obsess over the details.
Think about every part of your business except the one part that works without a thought, your Inc. card. Chase Inc. Business Unlimited, with unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase. Chase for business. Make more of what's yours.
All right, and we're back. And on the bottom of your screen, take a look. You should see the second CPE code for this session. It's a 3-digit number. Please write that down. And there'll be one more later on in the session. That's your verification of having attended. And later on, when you're ready to get CPE credit, you'll be able to recall those numbers. And that's how that works. So we did our first survey a few minutes ago asking for the size of the firms who were in attendance at this session today. And about not quite 3/4, about 70% are in the 1 to 5 person range.
Okay, that helps to know.
And then the rest are across the board in all ranges, all the way up to over 100, which was as high as we tallied. So, so that's an interesting perspective on who we're talking to. So probably a lot of firms that don't have a dedicated marketing plan.
Okay.
Or person.
Right, or person.
Yes.
So one thing I'd like to do is put up another poll real quickly, just to ask you what, if any, social media platforms you use for your business. And again, this is, you can use this on your phone. This is at slido.com, slido.com, and the session reference is December CPE, and that'll get you into our poll. And just we'll leave this up for a few minutes and see what kind of interest we've got in terms of firms using social media for their business. So what kind of caveats do you guys have about using social media for business marketing?
I'm going to go back to be authentic. You know, there's a lot of firms out there. We're a little more conservative. There's a lot of firms out there who like to post cute things or make funny videos, and I think it's wonderful. I've got some great friends who've made some amazing videos and put things up on social media that's just resonated with people, but that's not who we are. So I would just say, just be authentic and be professional. You know, you have this will be up and people, this is who you are, and think this is branding, this is brand awareness. So just be very mindful of who your audience is and who you want your audience to be.
I would say post often. So pick one, you know. It's more than LinkedIn and Twitter and YouTube and all of these days. I mean, sometimes you go on websites and you see all these icons, and those are the largest firms, of course. So my caveat would be pick one, and my advice would be to pick LinkedIn, because that is the most, you know, business-related social media platform, and post regularly. Drive people to your website, share your thought leadership. You know, post some photos, you know, from firm activities if that's who you are, because being authentic, like you said, is so important. But it can't. Social media is not a billboard. You know, you need to constantly be updating that on a regular basis, because if people don't see anything new, they're not coming back.
Right. So on our website, we have a huge library of blogs, so it's easy for us. So if you're creating your own content, it's a lot harder. I have a friend, so you want to think, what am I going to do for the firm, but what can I do for myself? And I have a friend who's built a great following just reposting things. You know, they just love to read up on industry-related items. They're very much into a certain community, a certain niche, and they love to repost and just keep information flowing with their followers. Absolutely. So you want to think about it. Okay, I'm a solo practitioner. I'm a one-person firm. How am I going to get visibility? And you could just start with a lot of reposting, but that original content is going to be important. So whatever, I don't know what recommendations you want to give on content.
Well, I know Brian's going to want to weigh in on this too. So why don't you weigh in?
Well, I just want to go back to, there was with Gail's question, the caveat about social media is, the way I look at it, which is a very digital way to look at it, is the function of social media beyond everything you've said, or concurrent to that, is content amplification. That's what we call it in the digital geek space. And so that means you have to have content to amplify. So the question is, depending on, you know, who are, going back to the conversation earlier, we want to grow, who are we targeting? Well, we need to be amplifying content, whether it's reposting something else or sharing a study or something from the IRS that's relevant and meaningful to our existing customers and potential customers. Because what you talk about online, you will attract. It's just that simple. So if you're talking all about tax compliance, sooner or later you're going to start attracting that to your firm. If you're talking about auditing, that will come. So keep that in mind as you move forward. And you can't do everything, so don't try to do everything. Pick 1, 2, or 3 kind of areas that you want to make about, tie into your brand. Yours can either mean the organizations, or as you pointed out, you as an individual.
Right.
Because both are meaningful and relevant. Those were my points.
So the audience is probably wondering, okay, they keep saying content, they keep saying reposting, they
Yeah.
keep saying, like, do this often, and all of a sudden, I know they're probably wondering, like, how in the world do we do that, right?
Yeah.
So a couple of things, and I'd love your feedback on
Okay,
this as
sure,
well.
sure.
Okay, so first of all, you can create your own. And I can imagine a lot of shaking heads, like, when am I going to find the time
Right.
to do that,
that's
right?
hard.
If you set a goal for yourself, even to write one blog post or article a month, I mean, let's start it with something reasonable. Check your email inbox or recall conversations you're having with your clients, and what kind of questions are they asking you? And which questions keep getting asked over and over again? If you were to write a brief blog post or article to answer that question, you're answering that question not only for your own client base, but for many other people who have that same question, right? You can also purchase content. Now that might be a gasp, but there are resources out there where you can purchase content. But again, I always advise clients, don't use it exactly as it comes.
Right.
At least change the headline. Don't use the graphics that they provide for you. Separate that out, right? Talk about being authentic and just carrying on your brand and your style. That's important too, because visuals are really important. And when possible, add a quote to that content that you bought. Or what is your take on that new tax law or the opportunity for whatever it is? So that when you're posting it, it's not exactly like 100 other firms who are just slapping it up there because they feel like they need something online. And it could be a combination of creating your own and customizing content that you purchase.
I have the IRS sort of update feed. You just go onto the IRS website and sign up for it. And I've gotten some of the best content stories and ideas from the IRS notifications. Sometimes they even give you links and things to post themselves. So use that as a resource if you're a tax practitioner. It's great because it's current. It's something that's relevant to most of your client base. So that's a great place to go to get, just content ideas. And it doesn't have to be, this notion of a full-blown article. It could be something, a couple of paragraphs just to get things going and to put ideas out there, just to get your client base and your readers up to date on important news.
I want to say a couple things on this topic. One is that, to your immediate point, I heard somewhere, I don't know where I was recently, talking to some accounting firm, I'm sure, where even if you're taking, let's say, we call it canned content or purchase content, and putting it out in front of your audience, whoever they are, it makes you appear as an authority. Because it may be, even though, I've read hundreds of IRS documents in the last year, but so I'm aware of certain things, but that doesn't mean, the average business owner, the average tax client, they don't even know what half this stuff, that the practitioners in our audience, they know all these things. So it's important to remember that you hold the perspective. So Jean's point, which is a really good one about, and this is dependent on the size of the firm. For the solo practitioners, maybe your approach is, one, if you're not doing any content, do something. Start small. Small steps in the right direction are still progress. You will still see some value. Now, if you're in a 100-person firm and you're producing 10 parcels of content a month and you go down to 1, well, that's not growth. So keep that in mind. But starting with the questions is really important. And when we do this for our practice, when we get questions on SEO or digital marketing, the answers are so easy. Because we know the answer.
You think it's easy.
Right,
Yes,
because for
yes.
us, we work in this every day.
Right.
So it's the same for a CPA. They know X, Y, and Z pretty well.
Right.
So to sit down and write 15 to 20 minutes, and a lot of times I'll encounter accountants who tell me, well, but CPAs think in numbers. Yeah, it's okay, I know you do. But if you can just put these few concepts in a document and publish it, it may not seem like a big thing for you, but for a business owner, a small business owner, or whoever you're targeting, wow, they may not have known that. And you provided that information to me. So suddenly your authority in my mind gains value. So it's kind of intangible, but it's so important because the great thing about this is if you do this for a year, now you have 12 months of these. It's a cumulative effect is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
Absolutely.
So next year, when someone's next tax season, someone's out there Googling around or social media-ing around, you already got one question down or two questions down. And there's the term we use in the industry is evergreen content, which basically means it doesn't change much.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I tell my practitioners all the time, you are an expert in your field because your clients don't do what you do.
Yeah,
You're
bingo.
in it. You're in it every day. You know so much more and are so valuable to your clients. So what is it that they need to know about? So then the second thing I say to them for advice I would give for writing articles or any sort of content is, how would you explain it to your practitioner or to your client? If you're concerned about, I don't want to get too technical and I want to make sure that it's not all about the numbers, how would you explain it to a client? That's what you want to put on paper and that's what you want to put out there because that's what your audience is going to, it's going to resonate with them.
Right. You know, so let me add, so one of my clients now, we do have a bi-weekly e-newsletter. We do use content that's been purchased. And when he engaged me, he said, Jean, I'm not concerned so much with growth. I'm concerned more about client retention. You know, we've had a couple things happen. I just need to kind of right the ship. And he's given me feedback that he is consistently getting calls from clients and referral sources thanking him for sending out this information. So this it can absolutely contribute to your firm's growth, but it's also a value add that you're bringing to your clients because they need this information, and if they're not getting it from their own firm, they're going to be getting it from another firm.
I just want to say one thing. Isn't it interesting that marketing and accounting firms has come from a yellow page ad to now we're sitting here talking about, well, you got to have this magical content, you know, whatever that is. And by the way, content can be video. And it can be written word. I think we mean written word. It's implied. I mean, I do. But you can do video and other things. That now we're talking about this.
Right.
In what, a span of 25 years?
Right.
Holy bananas.
Okay, but then let me kind of bring it back, right? So I know that the slide is still up there, which is great. Thank you for that. Something that warms my heart is that networking is still on there. It's still a top 5. And look at this, for the firms with 2 to 10 persons, networking is the #1 activity that they're going to be doing more of. So this warms my heart because we've been talking a lot about content and digital and social media, and that's all relevant and important, but nothing replaces the practitioners going out and being face to face with people who are potential clients or who can refer them clients.
The relationship is still numero uno.
Absolutely.
It's all about relationships.
Absolutely. Right.
Absolutely.
So, and it's not something that everyone is comfortable with doing. So not everyone needs to be responsible for being involved in marketing, but those that have the ability, they can just find their right space. So it doesn't need to be these huge networking functions. It could be a series of lunches or breakfasts or just smaller scale mixers, but getting the face-to-face. So when it comes back to that marketing plan and what should be in it, I believe that it needs to be a combination of face-to-face and non-face-to-face. So it's not all digital and online, and it's not all face-to-face, it's some combination.
That is a really good point, because one of the things I hear commonly is, well, you know, okay, Brian, you know, you're promoting our website, but what, is the website going to close the deal? It's like, look, I never said that, you know. I mean, that would be great if you could automate the website to close the deal, too.
That would be.
But the truth of the matter is that's not the reality, at least that I live in, and I'm sure the rest of you agree that.
Right. Absolutely.
that the face-to-face, the networking, and the being physically present is really important. And all these other things we're talking about are designed, whether it's the digital or the events or it's designed to position you or you all or people in your firm in the right place to have the greatest impact. And that really should be an unstated goal of marketing. How are we going to make the greatest impact with what we have? And it's not just buying a bunch of content and putting it out there and we're just hanging out at home, sipping a Diet Coke if you're me. No, it's a multi-tier process. And it's maybe that multi-tier process for the 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 person firms is maybe it's just a smaller multi-tier. And then the 100-person firms is a giant multi-tier. But think like that.
Yes.
I think if our viewers can think like that about marketing, and maybe as a result of our session today, take one thing over the next couple weeks and just let it. I have one client that says, I'm going to let that idea simmer. I laugh, but just play with that and see how can you do something with it.
Right. I always tell people, marketing should position you to be prepared, whether it's for a business meeting, for a networking event, for a proposal. If you do the activities, you're going to be in a much better position than if you didn't, because you're going to be prepared either with an elevator speech or a proposal or just that client contact. You're going to be in front of them, not somebody else.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely for that solo practitioner or that person who is saying, okay, so now I have to do networking, now I have to do social media, now I have to do all of this. It's all interrelated. It really all works together.
I mean, if we think about the old days, when a CPA got a prospect, they'd pack their print brochure in their briefcase and drive to the prospect and tell their story. And they were in total control of that story. Nowadays, when a CPA is meeting with a prospect, they have already done their homework about that firm. They've looked at your website. They've looked, what sort of resources are they providing to their clients, or what would I gain from them, from the site? Are they blogging? Is there something that I could subscribe to and learn from? They're on your LinkedIn company page, and they're checking out your LinkedIn profiles. They want to see what sort of expertise you have and who you might know. So that just confirms that, our world has changed, but some things have stayed the same.
Yeah.
We just have different ways now of telling that story and getting the word out there about who the firms are and their areas of specialty and the team members that, execute on those services.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take another quick break, a very quick break, to hear just a little bit more about our sponsor, Chase Inc. After that break, we will show the third CPE code for this session. And I have to tell you, as you know, we experienced some technical difficulties with this session. I understand that the first CPE code wasn't seen by a whole lot of people. So after we do the third CPE code, we're going to show the first one again. And we're just going to, get through this session and it'll be smooth sailing the rest of the day. This is the beauty of live broadcast. So first a quick commercial break from Chase Inc. and then we'll see our third CPE code and we'll be back in just a very short moment.
With the Chase Inc. Business Unlimited card, I get unlimited 1.5% cash back. It's so simple, I don't even have to think about it. So I think about mouthfeel.
Chase Inc. Business Unlimited with unlimited 1.5% cash back on every purchase.
All right, we are back. Right now on the bottom of the screen, you should see the third CPE code for this session. So please be sure to write that down along with the other 1 or 2 codes that you have written down. We're leaving that up for about 30 seconds, I think. And then I'm asking our control room to go ahead and switch over and replay the first CPE code for those of you who missed it, because we had a rocky start in this session, but we got that out of our system, I think. So go ahead. So you want to remember these in order, though. So the last code you're seeing is going to be the first one. The one you saw earlier was the second one, and then you just got the third one. It's confusing, I know, but we'll make it work. All right. So as we kind of wrap up towards the end of this session, what kind of things should our attendees think about when they're getting ready to put together a plan that they want to be successful? What are some key pointers that they can take away to make sure that they're on the right path to success?
Who wants to start? I'll give it a start because I know all of us have ideas. I'll go back to doing their homework ahead of time. So you're not just taking, your blank sheet of paper or your laptop and, writing out these great goals. Figure out where you are right now. What sort of growth do you want to achieve? Develop your SMART goals and objectives to help you get there, and then make sure that you're measuring it so that you know where you are. And your plan, so let me just say, it's not carved in stone. So you might establish these goals and objectives, and then during the year an opportunity comes up, whether that might be for a seminar or a particular online ad or whatever it might be. Consider that. If you have a team, meet regularly with your team, consider this new opportunity. And you may also need to determine, well, what do we need to remove from the plan? So if we're going to take on this new initiative, what do we need to remove just so that your plan remains relevant and realistic?
Yeah. I'm going to say really calendar it out. And the reason I say that is because you can create this amazing plan, have all of these goals, but if you don't start somewhere and give yourself small goals throughout the process, it's hard to, go back, or it's hard to measure. So calendar it out. Maybe you're going to check it, like I said, weekly, monthly, quarterly. You need to set some sort of time goal within your overall goal setting, because that will keep you honest and it'll keep you sort of on top of what it is you want to accomplish and give you opportunity to retool. If something happens in month 3 of the plan and it takes you in a different direction, then you could come back in month 4 and 5 and come back to it and pick up from there.
I think there was a commercial for in the 90s for this rotisserie oven. This applies, I promise. Called the Ronco rotisserie oven, and the slogan was, "Hey, set it and forget it." Right? Do not do that with your marketing plan. Don't Ronco this thing into a box. Okay. It should be a living document in the sense that it can be changed, as you've said. I mean, I like a lot of the points both of you said in that angle. I like what Jean said about setting objectives and measuring. And I also want to say about a marketing plan is don't be confined to the history of your actions. In other words, just because you did something last year, this does not mean you need to do it this year. Right. Hey, if it worked, great. Let's find a way to make it better. If you don't really know what we got, it's a little murky.
That's a great point.
Let's just, maybe we either do what Jean said, find ways to get some more analytics and measurements around it, or let's try something new.
Right. Yeah. The strategy shouldn't be, we did this last year.
No.
Right.
No.
So that's why we need to do it again.
Or there's really one very, very, very important point I want to make. Just because your competitors are doing something does not mean you have to, right, or you should. Now, if it's working for them, great. But a lot of the firms that we work with, well, the first question always is, well, what is so-and-so firm doing? You can't base your innovation, whatever that means, or your strategic planning and marketing off what your competitor is doing, because that doesn't give you the best chance to succeed. Mm-hmm. That's a couple of my thoughts.
Right.
Yeah, I'll say one more thing. Talk to your clients. They could say, hey, you know what? I really wish we could meet on a monthly basis and just talk about some hot topics. There you go. Webinars or seminars, online seminars can quickly become a great priority that can help your planning and your efforts. So talk to your clients, see what they need, see what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. And let me add, So you're marching again into your busiest time of the year, right? Do I dare say tax season?
Right.
When you are face to face with all of your clients, and I know the focus is on, let's get those financial statements done, right? Let's get those tax returns done and filed. Last year's tax season for a lot of practitioners was rough,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Challenge.
Wasn't it with
Yeah.
the new tax law? But remember that this is the time when you are spending all this face-to-face time with your clients. Ask them the bigger picture things. Don't ask them, where's your bank statement from September? Get into those bigger conversations about their bigger goals. What are their dreams? What are they concerned about? And make those notes, and you'll have a whole inventory of conversations to have with your clients when tax season is done, when you will be working on those more advisory type services, helping your clients achieve those bigger picture goals that they have.
Right. I do a seminar for our practitioners, a lunch and learn right before busy season, and it's marketing through busy season. And it really goes back to just give them great client service, listen to them. If they talk about something they need that can't be addressed at that time because you're working on compliance, make sure you note it, because those are the conversations you're going to have after busy season, and that's invaluable.
Yes, that's a great idea.
Well, Brian, Irene, and Jean, thank you so much for a wonderful
you.
conversation. This has been excellent, and I hope you all got so much out of this, because I know I certainly did. Also, we want to thank you all for bearing with us through our initial start, which was a little bit rocky. For those of you who have joined us for session 2, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty in session 1, so we're delaying a couple minutes. So stick with us. We're just going to change the setup a little bit, and we'll be right back for session 2. Thank you all so much for joining us at Ensuring Success.